Welcome to Jim's Reinvention Revolution podcast, the show that explores reinvention in the digital age as it relates to career, creativity, and technology. Stay tuned for interviews with professionals, entrepreneurs, and creatives that have reimagined success and are making a pivot. If you'd like to listen to the entire back catalog, visit Jim'sReinventionRevolution.com for instant access. And now, here's your host, Jim.
Hi everybody, hey, this is Jim, and welcome to Jim's Reinvention Revolution podcast, episode 7, and I'm sitting here with Tino Go, and we're going to talk about his career and how he's traveled around the world, and most recently, he's ended up in Lorain, Ohio. Is that where you're from, or Elyria?
I'm living in Elyria.
Elyria, okay, sorry, close to Lorain, and how he's reinventing the furniture industry, which sounds amazing to me, so we're going to get going here. Tino, welcome to the revolution.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
What's been going on, man?
You know, been working hard and building this business. I'm putting together a funding syndicate right now, so the actual business is kind of on hold while I round up investors and gather interest.
Okay, cool. So, yeah, you know, you were telling me about this new business, and I thought it was, I guess, out there, but it's really sort of in the nascent sort of early stages.
Yeah, it is. It is. We started selling our furniture in February, and so it's been good. And you know, it's very much a startup still, in the sense that we're still learning a lot. We're still learning a lot about the market and what the market's wanting and how we can address that. And since I'm still working with a supply channel partners. Mm-hmm. I can't, completely control what happens within my organization or the umbrella organization. Okay. The goal is to build a vertically integrated manufacturing.
I see. And we're going to get into the business model, and it's a very unique part in terms of, I guess you're calling it sort of, high volume customization, or we'll get into that in a second. But the reason I connected with you when we first started talking, we met at the launch house, maybe like a week ago, last week, or?
Yeah, it was recent.
Yeah, it was recently. We're there attending one of the functions over there, and for the folks listening before, I know I've mentioned the launch house in episode 1 and episode 6 coming up a little bit. Some of the folks that hang out over there. It's a co-working space, and it's there's always entrepreneurs and professionals hanging out there that are starting new projects. So Tino's one of them. And when we got started talking, I knew that he knew about manufacturing processes and had this larger experience of, he wasn't just a furniture store guy. It didn't sound like to me, but it sounds like that's his passion now. So I wanted to hear about his previous experience, because it was very interesting in terms of how he came out of school and how he's thought about the world or viewed the world early on, and what has led him to this point in terms of like, okay, now's the right time to dig into this project. It's a passion thing, and it sounds like your previous experience is going to enable you to really, really shoot for the stars on this project.
Yeah, I think I've got an eclectic background for sure, but it's been really informative to this Dimensionally Yours, this furniture venture. The term that's bandied around is mass customization.
Okay.
And essentially it is personalized manufacturing done at an affordable price. And what's enabling this concept to come to life is the technology's become available, and it's become more affordable, quite simply.
Okay, and what's the technology that you're speaking about?
It's advanced 3D modeling in software 3D modeling of physical objects, and then the machinery has become a lot more versatile and flexible.
I see. Are you bringing a new process to the industry, or is it kind of a new take, or setting a new expectation in terms of how orders would be handled, or how the customer kind of input front-facing part of the business? It's
a redesign of the manufacturing and retail channel and supply process. Because we're a startup, we can start from scratch. Mm-hmm. we can start with a blank slate, as it were, and redesign the process to use the existing technology to be efficient, as opposed to having to accommodate old habits or old processes that are inherently designed and optimized for old technology.
I see. So, what's the common customer experience if you're out there today and you're looking to put some furniture in your new place, you bought a new house, or you have a different space you're moving into, whatever it is. What's the common experience of if you go to order, and what level, maybe you could speak to that a little bit, of furniture you're going to offer? Is it sort of high end, middle, low tier, or various price points, or so that customer, if you're looking for that furniture, you can give me an example of what kind of store you go to, what you would expect today, kind of on today's landscape.
That's a little bit hard to describe exactly because we're breaking that model, because our operating model is so much more efficient. We can introduce a higher level of quality and materials grades at a mid-range price point.
I see.
But stepping back into the customer experience, when a customer is shopping for furniture, they're looking for the right combination between quality, price, style, and size.
Right.
And so it's pretty common to find quality, style, and price in the right combination. Quality, price, and style in the right combination. However, it's also very common that it's not the right size.
I see. Mm-hmm.
And in places like New York or Boston or any place, any geography, any region where real estate is over $500 per square foot, mm-hmm. the homes are smaller.
Right.
And size becomes a really critical pain point. It's, when a bookcase is standardized at 30 inches, that might mean in some homes that you can't open the front door.
Right.
And so that's what we're addressing is, initially, we're addressing that size constraint. We're actually removing that size constraint.
I see.
So we're really enabling the customer to buy furniture the same way they buy shoes. They identify the style they like, and then they buy it in the color and size they want.
I see.
That doesn't exist right now right now you've got the spectrum of available furniture from mass production, particle board, ready to assemble, mm-hmm. all the way to custom made, which is a long, tedious, and psychologically fraught process.
Right. Right. It can beat you down for sure. When you're going into a store or talking to a designer and they pull out 6 gigantic books to look at and you're flipping through trying to find a color or something, right?
Right. And we just want to make that process a little bit easier. We're going to bring down the price point so the commitment, the financial commitment doesn't seem daunting. Mm-hmm. It's a completely different business model. So to be a little bit more concrete, we're going to hold the price point of around Crate and Barrel prices or Pottery Barn prices, mm-hmm. mid-range. Mm-hmm. But because we are manufacturing to order in the specific sizes that the customer needs,
I see.
We don't have to carry the inventory. We don't have to carry the all of those costs associated with holding a piece of furniture and displaying it for that one person who happens to need that size.
Right.
And because we're eliminating all of those wasted costs, all those inefficiencies, we're able to increase the level of quality, construction quality and mm-hmm. materials quality. Mm-hmm. For example, we're only using solid wood, no particle board.
Okay.
That's our mantra.
Right.
And so, at a reasonable price point, not only do you get custom sizing, you get actually better quality with us.
Right. And you get a shorter lead time, right? Because you're going to be producing,
absolutely,
right?
Absolutely. We're not reliant on a global supply chain. Right now, we're making our furniture in Ohio, and eventually we'll have satellite operations across the country, so that we don't have to waste the cost of shipping as well as the timing of shipping.
I see. So that's interesting, and it kind of parallels maybe the Amazon universe we're living in. For example, everybody wants things faster, quicker. they want them more customized, and they want it, shipped to them quicker. So, produce quicker, but also kind of just right close to their local area. Kind of like farm to table or something,
Yeah, I mean, you bring up farm to table. I mean, that's part of the ethos that we're all living with.
Right.
And by reducing our supply chain, we're more resource efficient. We're using ethically and sustainably harvested local hardwoods, and we're even using less fuel to get it to you.
Right. Yeah, I think it's really timely. Like, you're kind of really it's the right time for something like this, for this kind of idea, especially in this industry. I was just talking earlier about when there's a couch sitting here over to our right. So it's a nice couch. It's a 100% leather couch. It's from a famous manufacturer, Crate and Barrel. Okay, I you didn't hear that, but and I really like the couch. And I paid about $4,000 for it, but this is the issue that I have with the current, kind of furniture industry that I've experienced just on a personal level. It was one of their stock items, but I had to wait weeks for it. Okay, so I think I had to wait 4 or 5 weeks, even though it was one of their standard colors that they offer. It just wasn't really available, so I still had to wait for it. And I get here, it's in my house, and I'm kind of living in this new age, and I've moved around a lot. I like to travel a lot. I'm thinking about maybe getting a new house or whatever, and it's just not the same scenario where you're working at a corporate job and you're going to be in your house for 20 years, and you can really invest a lot of money in a specific type of piece of furniture and really feel good about it. And so if I wanted to move from this location or downsize into a smaller apartment because I'm going to be traveling more, et cetera, which I see myself doing soon, I'm not feeling that good about the investment anymore. Like, what do I do with this thing? And then then I'm going to need another piece of furniture, and what do I do with that piece of furniture? I still like to have something that's nice. It's nice, above average level. But it's hard. It's going to be hard for me to think about investing that kind of money again, thinking that, well, I might just be in this small apartment for a few years while I'm traveling, and then I'll buy a different house or something. So I think this kind of really product and service that you're offering is kind of it's interesting, really.
Yeah, well, I mean, the goal is to eliminate the inefficiencies, and those inefficiencies are involved with the manufacturing process. Being a local manufacturer eliminates all of the global supply chain, I'll call them frictions.
Right.
And the timing associated with that global supply chain and the complexity of, and the reason the global supply chain in the furniture industry exists is they've had to compete with low labor costs overseas, and so they have the traditional manufacturers and retailers. They've been forced to compete on that same level, whereas Dimensionally Yours, we're completely flipping the production process on its head by using the latest technology that's available, the latest manufacturing technology that's available. We can make one of a kind efficiently.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So let's rewind a little bit in terms of kind of how did you stumble upon this idea in the first place? Like, what was your motivation? And let's talk about that first a little bit, and then I want to rewind a little bit farther and figure out how did you believe that you had the wherewithal that you're like, what, I can do this. I can put this company together. Because you told me about your kind of frustration, how you stumbled upon this. So let's start there first. What?
Sure. So I've got this landing in my own house, a stairway landing, on which I wanted to put a bookcase or a shelving unit in the corner. Not something so big that I was going to kick it every time I walked past.
Right.
But I didn't want it to be so small and inconsequential that it would be not usable.
Right.
And I wasn't able to find anything like that. Everything was either the wrong size, usually, given the fact that I was looking to fill a very small space.
Right.
Or it was just plain ugly.
Right. Right. You can find like a wire rack, but you're like, I'm not putting that there.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And
right.
And that level of, I was appalled that in the 21st century I couldn't get an attractive piece of wood in the size I wanted, without actually having a carpenter or a craftsman make it. In which case it would be, weeks or months and hundreds or thousands of dollars.
Right.
Which I was not willing to do.
Gotcha. So somehow you're like, this frustration turns into this idea for a business, but experientially, kind of like, where are you at in your career at this point, and why do you think that, hey, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put a business together, and I'm not just going to put a business together like a local kind of one-off business. It sounds like you're really structuring this thing so that it can really grow, and that you have this business, experience behind you that's enabling you to do this. So can you speak about that a little bit?
Yeah, so since 2004, I've been a financial controller. So I've been in charge of the finances of various companies, from small $12 million companies to large $1.1 billion business units of global companies. And so I come at it.
And that was in the manufacturing area, kind of those style of companies, or were they financial? What were they?
They were mostly manufacturing. There were a few. Let's see. There was an industrial service company. I worked for a Big Four accounting firm, helping oversee one of their internal business units, and it's been a pretty diverse set of companies, but always related to finance. And prior to becoming a controller, I was doing some workouts and turnarounds consulting for one of the big three auto manufacturers. That exposed me to a lot of smaller companies in a wide variety of manufacturing activities, also, as well as very large companies, as I think about it.
Right.
And so that's my professional background, at least recently. My first career, I spent 12 years doing advertising production between Detroit, Los Angeles, Paris, Italy, and Germany.
So explain that, because you're just an interesting person, because you have this dichotomy going on with you. I can't remember what you called it before. You're what was the term you used? Like
weird.
Binaural or something. You have
Bi-modal.
Bi-modal, right? Which speaks to me, because that's kind of a little bit like me. So I've been in the business world, engineering world for a long time, and that's one of my universes. My other universe is playing music and doing more creative things. Although, to me, being in product development and advanced engineering is a creative endeavor as well. And but that's kind of where you have this interesting combination of business understanding, experience, understanding of manufacturing processes, et cetera. But you have this art component, this visual art component that I think is very interesting for the business that you're going into now, that can really set you apart, having both of these skills. Because usually, at least the businesses I've seen, it's efficient and it's cheap, but it's ugly, or it's very beautiful and amazing, but it's inefficient, too expensive and bulky, whatever. It's not the right size. So how did you start out in your early career with more of an art kind of based endeavor?
Yeah, so
what got you?
I graduated high school with a couple of art scholarships for photography, painting, and sculpture. One of those scholarships sent me to Europe just to travel, and that was actually a watershed trip for me. The other one was from Eastman Kodak for tuition at any school I wanted to enroll in and could get into.
Wow.
But in the end, I dropped out after the first semester because I became impatient with the curriculum.
What was the scholarship for? What was the actual major or classes you were taking?
It was for the Eastman Kodak one. Was for a portfolio of 12 photos. I won the first place. Eastman Kodak.
So you were a photographer at this point.
Yes.
Okay. And so the scholarship you got, was it to study photography or to go into art, or what was the
It was tuition.
curriculum?
It was a tuition scholarship. So wherever I wanted to spend that money, I could. In the end,
wow. And you didn't have to study art? They were just giving you a scholarship for college? Or?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's cool. It's just something that you won.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I got lucky. And the contests are a function of luck.
Kind of random, right?
Yeah, they are.
Uh-huh.
And so I ended up going to the Center for Creative Studies, which is a photography and art school in Detroit.
I see.
But
okay.
I quit after midway through the first semester.
Wow, the first semester. That's interesting. So what turned you off, or it just wasn't what you thought it was going to be, I guess?
It was too slow paced. It was very. It wasn't teaching me what I wanted to know, which was how to apply it in a business, how to apply it in. Yeah, it was too. It was teaching baby steps of photography as a technical medium.
I see.
Whereas even before, when I was in Europe, taking advantage of the first scholarship, I walked into a fashion studio, Click Clack Studio in Paris, and volunteered to work for free. And I ended up working with world famous fashion photographers for, I don't know, I was there 3 months, I guess. And so I had that experience even before I enrolled in school. And that.
So it's hard to go back.
Yeah.
Once you had a glimmer of really what was happening.
Right.
Right.
And then so I quit school and started freelancing as a photo assistant. Actually, I got a full-time job for a fashion photographer, and then when I got fired from there, I started freelancing.
Right.
So I started freelancing, and I became quite well known in the Detroit area, and then chose to go to Los Angeles one spring to follow my clients, and stayed in Los Angeles for 3 years. During the tail end of that 3 years, I took 5 months and learned French in Paris. And upon my return to Los Angeles, I ended up working for one of my clients who was working for his French rep, and that snowballed into an opportunity in France.
That's interesting. So what motivated you to go to France and learn French? Just because you thought, hey, for this industry or the clients I'm around, it'd be useful, or it was just an interest, or? It
was just an interest because the first scholarship that took me over there, I spent I spent 5 months over there on the scholarship, and it was just I became completely enthralled by Europe, the way they live, the way they, what they prioritize. Everything, even the yellow headlights in France at the time.
Right. Yeah, even on the freeways, I think they had the yellow sodium lights on the freeways out there, yeah.
Yeah. And so...
Not anymore, probably, but...
No, and they're white now, but just everything about it completely enthralled me. So, over time, I was able to spend some vacations over there, but just on a whim, I thought, I've got some time, I've got some resources.
Right.
I'll go to Paris and learn French.
Wow. That's... And how old are you at this point?
Oh, I was...
In your 20s or something?
Yeah, so 23.
Okay, so early 20s. So that's really kind of a ballsy decision or kind of a bold move, I think, a little bit. I mean, you're still a little bit carefree. You probably don't have a family, etc. But just to kind of dive in like that, maybe having this vision of I want to experience the world and figure things out.
Yeah, I was inherently curious, and the fun of living overseas. And there's some uncertainty, but the downside was pretty limited. Right. And I wasn't quitting a job. I was a freelancer in Los Angeles, so I was already saying no to 95% of the folks that were calling me anyway. So,
so you kind of went on an extended vacation or something.
Exactly.
Right?
I was unavailable.
I see. And I've been doing that myself a little bit the last couple of years, where I've taken more extended vacations. So I've been to to Asia the last 2 years. I've gone for a month each time, and I highly recommend it. Like getting into the idea that you can take an extended vacation. I think other cultures, other than the U.S., are very much on board with all of this stuff. Like you're from Australia or from Europe. It's very common where you might go away for a month and really, really decompress or really explore another culture, another part of the world. It really informs you. It really is beneficial, even back to your, if you're worried about your career or your business that you're running. I think it's really can give you a lot of insights and opportunities. Really.
Yeah, it's life-changing.
It really is, yeah. So that's what was so interesting, too, when I first met you. You were telling me about your experience of living in all these different places and doing business at these high levels in all these different places. Very, very interesting to me.
Yeah, and it's, over the years, one of the things I've learned is serendipity doesn't happen at home.
Right.
And so
you got to get out there in the world and see what's going on, right?
Right. I mean, this.
I love that quote. Serendipity doesn't happen at home. That's going in the show notes. All right.
Yeah, and so each decision is just very incremental, and it's fairly low risk.
Right.
And that leads to opportunities. I heard on a podcast on the way here that opportunity favors a prepared mind.
Right.
And there's so much truth in that.
Right. Well, I think the whole thing, like you took some time, which I know I have a couple other friends who've done this, kind of immerse themselves, over in France to learn a language. I think that's a great way to get to know a culture or a country, or really challenge yourself. And it's so impactful just going on vacation for a week to some different location just to get you out of your normal habits and routines.
Absolutely.
And then when you're forced to really embrace a different culture and get into it, I think it's a phenomenal way to really grow and understand the world and really...
And yourself.
Yourself, be able to relate to people when you get back, and it's just... It's good all around,
Yeah, I started traveling with my sons when they were really young, and they've become quite worldly young men. Mm-hmm. Very open-minded, very, very empathetic of other people's viewpoints and
right. Understanding there are other viewpoints.
Yes.
That's the big hurdle to get over sometimes of like, oh, not everybody thinks like me or is coming from the same place.
Right.
And
shades of gray.
Right. Right. Because you're thinking wherever you came from, you're always thinking, well, that's the best place. Because that's my experience. You're kind of, until you start growing up and learning about the world, you're thinking like, this is the way it is. It's the only way, and then you kind of get out there and you're like, oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah, both of my sons definitely have much more worldly ambitions.
Right.
Geographically diverse, and in their, they're thinking about it quite often.
Right. That's pretty cool. So where did you grow up originally though? You're not from the Are you from the US?
No, I was born in Indonesia.
Oh, Indonesia. So I thought that's what you told me. Okay.
Yeah, and I grew up around Detroit. My father was a medical doctor, so we lived in inner city Detroit for the first year, and as his career progressed, we moved around in the Detroit area.
Is he from Indonesia?
Yes.
As well. So he came here soon after you were born. The family moved.
That's right.
Oh, okay. So you had the opportunity to come here. That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean it's I'm very thankful for the opportunity and for having gotten this lucky break.
Right. Which not everybody understands really how lucky it is, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So, because there's so much opportunity out there, especially now with business models changing, the digital world encroaching farther on us every day. There's a lot of maybe consternation and some upheaval, but tons of opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, there is. You have to be willing to open your mind to it and embrace it.
Right.
Which is not that easy.
Right. Well, that's one of the reasons for this podcast. I feel like, some people just, sometimes need a helping hand, like, seeing around the corners that are coming, the sharp corners that are dark in front of us, that are coming.
Yeah.
That if you are paying attention and kind of looking up and looking out in front of you, you'll be okay. But in our day-to-day lives, you get so wrapped up in what you're doing, it's hard to take time sometimes to do that, or maybe just by nature you're just not like that, and you need some other information. That's, to me, what the podcasts are all about. It's like a gateway to discovering something else, to finding your tribe, or opening your mind, or just in ways that have never been available to us before. That's the mind-blowing thing, really, for me. And
I agree.
Why I feel like sharing and just having someone like yourself on the cast.
Yeah, I completely agree. I love podcasts. Between that and audiobooks, I've always got something stuffed in my ears.
Right. Yeah, it feels like a new way you can nourish yourself or something.
Absolutely.
I don't know how to describe it, but okay. So you traveled a little bit. You learned French. That's amazing. And so where are you at in your career at this point in terms of you're still being a photographer, or still freelancing, or what are you doing? You
No, after high school, I stopped photography because actually I won those awards when I was too young, and
I see.
I wasn't able to fully assimilate how random and how lucky it was, as opposed to, so it was really hard for me to produce art at that point.
I see. Okay.
Because, nothing was good enough even before it was created.
Right.
And so I
so critical at that point, yeah.
Yeah, and so I got involved with the logistics end of photography and advertising.
Okay.
And so I was doing the logistics and the coordination, more of the business and the execution of ad campaigns, mostly for a little bit in fashion, but mostly for automotive.
Oh, interesting.
As I was in Detroit after all.
Yeah, right. But there are some parallels. I mean, automotive can be very sort of fashion oriented.
Yeah, everything is.
Right.
Everything's about passion.
Right.
Creating that passion.
Yeah.
And so, so I was doing that. Starting in Detroit and then Los Angeles, and for the first 3 years in Paris, I was also doing that. The last 2 years in Paris, I was overseeing I was overseeing Italy and developing that market, because the overall industry was consolidating, and so to be able to make our numbers, we had to grow our markets.
I see.
And then that was also the impetus for my moving to Germany.
Okay.
And conquering Northern Europe, as it were.
Oh, I see. All right.
Yeah, and so that's what I did. I was on the business end of advertising production. We had talent, we ran productions, and we had studios in Paris.
I see. And so at this time, like in terms of the advertising production, you must have seen like this massive influx of all the digital influence. So
no,
were things changing to digital at that point, or is it still
not
film?
Yet.
Or?
Not yet. It was still analog.
Okay.
Yeah, it was great. We were able to travel to all the best places in the world because you had to have it in the background, where in the post-digital world that was no longer
you don't really
true.
need to do that anymore. Right.
Yeah, and so I actually, in 1995, in the fall of 95, I was on my weekly call with my boss, and I quit, just on a whim.
Really?
Yeah.
Was it something that was just you felt was coming on, or it was something that your boss said, or just?
No, it was just it was a.
You didn't want to go on another trip or something. You were traveling too much.
No, not even. I I blurted it out. No forethought.
Really?
It was just like,
oh my God,
by
that's
the way,
fascinating.
November's the last month you have to pay me for because I'm leaving the company. And he asked me what I was going to do, and I said I don't really know.
I love it.
And
it's interesting because there's always something like your subconscious mind, your body is always in control and knows what you need sometimes. And it's probably whatever it was, and maybe you can look back on it now and think like, oh, maybe that's just what that was about. Like, you couldn't consciously put it into words why you needed to do something different, but your body knew,
Yeah, it was,
what
it came down to is I was bored. I was looking at another 20 or 25 years of more or less the same thing.
Right.
At least that was what I was forecasting.
Right.
In hindsight, quitting in 1995 was the luckiest thing I've ever done, because who knew that computers?
That's when the digital wave was coming. Yes.
Right. Who knew that computers would completely decimate that industry?
Right. Incredible.
Yeah. So in '95, I cast around for a couple of months, and then I decided to pursue an interest. That interest was in economics and finance.
So is that when you went back to? Did you go back to school then?
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so I had lived through a couple of recessions in '82 and then '92. In 1987, I had just liquidated my stock portfolio, and on my first day in Paris to learn French was Black Monday, the stock market crash.
Right. Yeah, 1987. I remember that. Yeah.
And so. So there was this incipient background interest in how things worked in the world, and I didn't understand it.
Right.
And so I chose to study it to understand and to hopefully be able to maneuver and navigate the world a little bit better.
I see.
I went to community college for a year and then enrolled at the University of Michigan, got a full ride there. I earned my BA in economics.
You just happened to get a full ride there, I guess.
Yeah, I was an outlier.
Is that how it works? I guess I should have done that too.
I was an outlier. They give they give tuition to outliers.
Unless you had some good scores or something, right?
And then followed that with an MBA in finance at Indiana in Bloomington.
Oh, that's great.
And I graduated in 2001, just in time for the .com bust and 9/11.
Right.
But understanding how the world worked, I was able to make the economic cycle work for me. I went back to Detroit and did workouts and turnarounds.
Oh,
so it was a very pro-cyclical move.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So that's a good point. Maybe explain that to a little bit to people that maybe don't understand that language or what you're talking about. Because it's like when companies because I was in the middle of this. We were talking earlier. I was in the middle of the fiber optic industry at that point, right before 9/11. I was living in New England, Boston area, and the stock market was peaking, right in 2001, and then it just crashed, really crashed. And then 9/11 happened on top of the crash, and then it was just obliteration everywhere. Everybody was getting laid off. I knew, thousands of people were laid off in Boston, all these high-tech companies. But in this time of churn, there is opportunities, and that's what you're talking about, right?
Exactly. Because I had gone to school to get into the banking industry because I wanted to learn finance really well as a tool.
Okay.
And
what part of your schooling did you think gave you that? Was it your undergrad, or did you said you went and got a master's in finance specifically?
Right.
Was it the master's that kind of gave you this sort of more applied knowledge of I see how to do this?
No, it's still very much academic knowledge, and I still felt like I needed a job working with the actual subject matter.
I gotcha.
And so it was my intent to get into banking, and that did not happen because of the stock market crash in 9/11.
Right.
But I did, we were talking about counter-cyclical and pro-cyclical industries. In downturns, a lot of companies enter into become financially stressed, and they, during that period between companies' health and bankruptcy, often they are, they have to hire consultants to help them weather that economic storm. And so I became one of those consultants. I worked for a couple of companies in Detroit, dealing with the entire world in crisis, as it were.
Because they might need to all of a sudden sell some assets, right?
Sell some assets, or even monitor the cash, be able to predict it.
Just do things that they haven't been needing to do traditionally, maybe within their own business, and all of a sudden this wave comes and they're like, oh my God, we don't even know how to do this. We don't know how to manage this, or package this up to sell off or whatever. So they need these outside resources to come in.
That's exactly right. And we came in on behest of the banks, or one of the consulting companies I worked for was working directly with Ford, overseeing their supply chain. So
I see.
Yeah. So in 2003, I met my ex-spouse in Cleveland. Mm-hmm. And so I moved to Cleveland, and I became, I got a job as a controller.
I gotcha.
Of a small manufacturing company. And yeah, so I've been essentially a financial executive ever since.
I see. So thanks for talking about this, because I think this really puts in context this recent move into the furniture industry, where you know how to deal with structuring companies, dealing with finance, but also in the manufacturing industry, right?
Yeah.
So you understand operations, you understand processes, and how important those things are to making a profitable business. It's not just that you're enamored with the look and feel from your art days or something like that, or your outlook in terms of an artistic outlook. You have this real wherewithal of like, hey, I think I can do this.
Yeah, it's all based on technical.
You can see the opportunity in the market,
yes,
right? Yes,
exactly. In the market and also on the shop floor.
Mm-hmm. Right.
The technology exists now where, this is no longer an unfeasible or inoperable business model.
Right. That's pretty cool. So are you still in your financial world, or do you still have your day gig essentially and doing this, starting this up, or where are we at these days?
For better or worse, no.
Or were you on another call and said, you know what, I'm quitting, I'm out of here?
No, it was, let's see, I started this at the end of, I got the idea in 2014 when I was in between positions, but I was picked up to oversee a business unit of BASF, a large German chemical company. Mm-hmm. And that lasted for about a year full-time, and then a year and another 9 months or so doing project work. And after I rolled off the full-time portion, I started exploring this custom furniture company full-time.
I see. Wow, that's awesome. So you obviously have some cushion to rely on, and you're getting it rolling and trying to actually court investors at the moment, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I must admit, it's gotten very tight right now.
Right. Okay. Right. Different sectors and different, the economy always is going up and down. But I guess if any investors are out there listening, get in touch with Tino.
Yeah, it's a really exciting idea, because more than an individual manufacturer and retailer of our proprietary designs, I'm looking to build a marketplace, manufacturing service-enabled marketplace.
I see. And
that confers a lot of economic benefits to the marketplace owner and the enabler.
Right.
Yeah, so it's a really exciting opportunity. The idea is much bigger than many I've come across.
Right. Yeah, I like I said before, I think it's really, the time is right for something like this. It hasn't really been done in this industry, and probably you just have the unique experiential background to kind of bring all your thoughts, to bear, and your experience to bear, and in creating this new take on it, this new look on it, right? Things that I'm thinking about in terms of, as you're describing this, that are probably coming, I don't know if you've considered it yet, is the advent of augmented reality.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely. We
didn't talk about this earlier, but are you thinking about this, like how this could play into your business model specifically? And I think the new iPhone 8 is going to be enabled with this technology, like the 3D sensing, et cetera, that you'd need to pull off the technology so that people can write apps for it.
Yeah, there's
right.
It's on our agile software task backlog.
Okay.
And so it's a little bit further down in the process, but it's definitely on the radar. And Yeah.
So
absolutely.
maybe we can describe. I don't know if you want to talk about it. This is what I would envision, like in terms of augmented reality, where you have basically an app, a Dimensionally Yours app that you could download, take any kind of size furniture, whatever, and look through your iPhone or through your smartphone, whatever it would be, and place that piece of furniture right in the room.
I think
right?
that you've gotten the process. I'd
Something like that. I mean,
Yeah.
it won't be, obviously these things will play out in different ways, but that's what I imagine will be happening soon for a lot of things. And I think furniture in particular, because it's hard to imagine in your own home. It's big and bulky. It just seems like the right niche for it, really.
Right.
Where it's like, how can I imagine what this is going to look in my bedroom? Well, now you can actually.
Exactly.
And you can win the right color and the right size and the whole thing. And maybe if it looks good, you just push a button and the order goes right in, right?
That's exactly it.
So-
That's exactly it. We're trying to make it easy for people to shop. Right now, when people shop for furniture, they're generally constrained by what they can find, whether it's at a physical store or, of some unknown quality and robustness from the typical online merchant.
Right.
Yeah, we're offering at a very competitive price point, solid hardwood furniture, robust flat pack construction. This isn't the kind of construction that you put together and then disassemble and it becomes trash immediately. It's made to be
Right.
withstand multiple moves and
Yeah.
but the key of being able to order something in the right size is critical, especially for places like New York City.
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking, like, we're just living differently, and I think people are moving and shifting around, and now we have this whole ability to have Airbnb in our house, for example. Like, I just was down in North Carolina visiting a friend of mine. She's going to be on episode 5 coming out, which will be posted soon here. And we didn't even really get to this in our conversation with her because she's got a ton of other different things going on. But right at the end, we just touched on it that she's doing Airbnb she's got a 2-bedroom house that she owns, and she does Airbnb in her other bedroom. Okay, so it's not a separate structure; it's just in her house, like a room of her house. And so, when you get into these scenarios, you might want different types of furniture that really don't exist in the right sizes traditionally that people are thinking for a normal home. You might want to have like an extra little stand or an extra little curio or cabinet or something, like a hotel room would have for your personal house now because you're Airbnb-ing it out,
Oh, that's interesting.
So there's just tons of different ways that we are living. Like I know there's these guys that have created a whole business of just doing Airbnb nationally, where they'll drop into a city, and they might do this remotely because they have their supply chain set up, and they just rent a whole floor of apartments in downtown Denver, and they Airbnb them out, and they want to fill them up within 2 days. Like, they sign the rental agreement, they fill it up in 2 days with furniture from their favorite supplier, and it has to fit their requirements, and they can do this all remotely because they can get the floor plans remotely. They can decide what size everything needs to be, and if they can go to someone who's actually can custom do it, they don't have to think anymore. They don't have to search. They don't have to figure out and do all this sort of meandering around, like, well, search on this website and see if they got a size of furniture that fits here and fits there and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
They can just send their order in and outfit all these Airbnb places they just rented out. I mean, it's really crazy. I mean, I know people that are doing it on boats, Airbnb-ing out their boat in Florida. I mean, it's really crazy. They could probably use this custom service that's a quick turnaround.
Yeah, that's an ideal scenario. The being able to, our goal is not only giving people things in the size they want, it's all about giving people allowing people to configure and buy objects they need, they want, they find attractive, desirable, and are also practical at both the functional and the price level.
Right.
And the current industry is not structured that way.
Right. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's hard to get that sort of the right combination of the parameters or the things that are important to you.
Mm-hmm.
There's super high end that looks beautiful. There's super low end that's not so beautiful but cheap. But yeah, it's hard to get the right recipe essentially. Right?
Right.
That's cool. So where do you see? So we got a few minutes left here before I have to get out of here. But how do you see things kind of rolling out over the next maybe a year or two here? You're kind of raising money now.
Yeah, we're raising our first seed round right now.
Okay.
And the goal with that is to knock out and streamline, smooth out. What is it? How do I want to say it? Get our manufacturing processes and ironed out, and create our manufacturing standards. So that we can apply it very quickly to new ideas and new designs.
I see.
And
so is that process in place, or you just know that, hey, I know I'm using this technology, that technology, but it hasn't been sort of fully fleshed out? Like what kind of stage would you say it's at?
I think it's fairly well developed in my mind.
Okay.
But it's,
because you know the capabilities that are out there. I mean,
exactly.
You've seen them, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So it's just a matter of getting the team assembled.
Yep.
And then publishing them internally.
Right. Okay.
Publishing them internally so that we can, so that our prototyping process is actually in software as opposed to.
Gotcha. Right.
And so it's the fundraise and then work like fools to.
Right. So if you come back on the podcast a year from now, or you're going to be up and running, serving orders, et cetera.
Yeah, we are serving orders. We are serving orders right now.
So you're doing it now. So you can send in orders now, right?
Yeah, we are serving orders right now. We're working with partner manufacturers to fulfill those orders. But the goal to bring the manufacturing in-house is to.
Oh, I see. Okay. So you're up and running. You're doing it now, but your longer vision of pulling that in-house is not quite there yet. But
exactly.
Okay. Cool. Awesome. So I don't think we mentioned your website or anything or any contact info. So before we get out of here, is there a website you want to give out? Or?
Yeah, sure. It's dimensionallyyours.com.
Okay.
Dimensionally and then yours.com.
Okay.
And of course, we've got a Facebook page where we post all kinds of interesting articles and things that we see out in the world.
Okay.
And
you can get there from the website. You have a link to the Facebook page, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have an Instagram for it yet, or?
Our Instagram feed is not really populated yet.
Okay, it's there, but you're getting around to it. Okay.
Yeah, but on the website, the blog page, there's a lot of interesting stories. There are examples of some custom work that we've done for interior designers, and. Yeah, we're doing a lot of custom work as we develop our standard models.
Okay.
And so.
Cool. And what about? We didn't even get to this, but I'll just ask you real quick. Is Pinterest on your radar? Is that the right venue for furniture, for example?
Yeah.
Pinterest and Instagram, probably.
Yeah,
right?
Pinterest and Instagram, both of them. We're at a point where we don't have enough content to keep those very active.
Right.
And. Yeah, that's...
Well, they'll be fleshed out, I'm sure soon.
Right.
But that's if you're out there looking around to find these guys, give those places a look as well, I guess, right?
Yeah, tune in on pretty much on Facebook right now.
Okay.
It's Facebook.
Okay, very good. And we can find you on LinkedIn or whatever. If anybody wants to get in touch with you directly, just go to the website. Is that the best place?
Yeah, or you can find me Tino Go at LinkedIn, Tino, and my last name is Go, Go, on LinkedIn. And contact me via LinkedIn.
Okay. Well, Tino, hey, thanks for being here. Got to get out of here, but thanks once again. I really appreciate it.
Likewise, it's been fun.
Okay, cool. Talk to you soon. Thanks. Thank you for listening to Jim's Reinvention Revolution podcast. If you want to hear more, join our mailing list at jimjimsreinventionrevolution.com. See you next time, and remember, the revolution has just begun. So dig in, embrace the process of reinvention, and
and start realizing the success you've always dreamed of.